Good morning. Good morning. Welcome back to Coppertown Games. I'm Mike, and I'm keeping with the theme of the recent videos. And I'm going to be honest with you, for a start for YouTube, probably not the best thing. These things aren't really the catchiest. We're not able to throw as much time at it as we deserve, but we are making improvements. So thank you for bearing with us, and we're getting our recording section. I'm not gonna call it a studio. We're getting it all set up. We're basically just kind of. I feel like my brother and I are just a bunch of exhausted packs of raccoons. Just yeah, we're hanging in there. We're doing good. We're doing great. But yeah, we are because of time busyness, both with lives, with the shop, with the club. It's kind of been it's been a little bit of hectic, and I know the production quality on these videos aren't the greatest. I know these probably aren't what people want to see, but honestly, with the way it goes, it's what we're able to put out, and there's not many videos that we're seeing that are just kind of explanations of, hey, here's what you get in the starter pack, here's what you get in the starter set. If there is, I haven't found any. I apologize if I stepped on anyone's toes. But yeah, so we've gone over some of the Americans, and I believe we've gone over some of the Soviets. If not, I will fix that. And then last week we went over the British. So this week I am going over, honestly, what is probably the most interesting to me NATO army in World War III Team Yankee. By Battlefront Games. It's the fascinating. I think they look the coolest of the NATO stuff. Their equipment is just cool. Looks cool. The camo schemes Battlefront paints them up in. It stands out from, I think, just about any army except maybe the Dutch have a similar camo scheme. But today we're going to be talking about the French armor, or the French Leclerc Tank Company. It's honestly, it's pretty cool now. 1985, World War III, written by General Thomas, or John Hackett, not Thomas. We talked about that. I talked about that a little bit last week, about how Hackett kind of wrote and developed the world. Well, the Leclerc was slowly coming into being. The French had typically been on the AMX 30, which was essentially kind of like a. I've heard it described. I don't know. I honestly, as much as I love the French, I am a Francophile. As much as I love the French, I don't know much about their Cold War tanks. From everything I've heard, the AMX 30 described as is basically, it is somewhere between an M60 and a Leopard 1. Fairly thin armor, decent mobility, 105 millimeter gun. That's about as that's about as much as I know. I think it has a 105. It would make sense that it has a 105. I'm not sure on the armor width, thickness or anything like that. So yeah, whatever. But essentially, the MX-30, I was starting to show its age, and the French were rolling out, because France didn't have the industrial base that the United States had. They were rolling out the Leclerc tank, but it was going slower than the Abrams. By 1985, from what one of our Cold Warrior members had to say, he was in Germany in 1980 to 1990. He'd be like, "Oh yeah, no, they were doing, like, I think he said it was battalion or brigade would, like, just completely convert over at a time to the M1." He said, he goes, "Yeah, no, by 85 there were some M1A1s out there, but, like, the Leclerc was kind of coming dribs and drabs, because again, limited industrial base in France. They don't have the industrial base that the United States had. They didn't have the mechanization. This stuff is expensive, and it takes, to do what the United States did, it takes a country the size of the United States, and with all of the money generated inside the United States, with all of the money from outside coming into the United States, that's what really helped fuel it. So wildly digressing here, but that kind of explains a very surface level of why the introduction of Leclerc was still underway in 1985, and you're still going to be running a lot of units that have AMX 30s in them. So the French Leclerc Tank Company starter box, I think in the game you could probably run just like Leclerc tank pure units if you wanted to. You're not going to want to, and I'll explain that in a minute. Even though the Leclerc is, but yeah, this is the box. The Leclerc is honestly, I believe it almost definitely has the best armor of any NATO tank. 120 millimeter gun. It shoots right there with the Challengers, right there with the Abrams. Like they're a mean tank. I think they're pretty good. Like I think I said last week the Challenger was probably one of the best NATO tanks, and it is one of the best. If I said it was the best, apart from the Abrams, I'm sorry. I'm an American. Abrams. I'm an American. Come on. I grew up on seeing what it did to Saddam Hussein's army. Abrams for me. But the Leclerc tank in the game, in the stats, is probably the best NATO tank, which honestly kind of reflects the time. The Abrams was fantastic in this era, but it wasn't what it's turned into today. The 2026 Abrams is way, way, way different of the Abrams from 40 years ago. So, Abrams of 40 years ago. Oh boy. All right. God, someone's going to be making a video in like 100 years about how the B-52 of 200 years ago or 150 years ago was dramatically different. Now, oh, man. Man, the Abrams was brand new when I was a kid. But the nice thing with the Leclerc Tank Company is that it is a well-rounded box. In the Leclerc, you have 3 Leclerc tanks. You have 3 AMX 30 tanks. You have 3 AMX AUF 1 self-propelled howitzers, 1 AMX 10 Observer for your artillery, and then 2 Gazelle helicopters and the standard flight stands, rare earth magnets, A5 rulebook, start here, booklet, and decal sheet and unit cards. Unit cards, love that they include these, very vital. But the AMX 30 is still a very good tank. It's not necessarily a knockdown dragout tank like on your front line, but definitely that would be your Leclerc's. It definitely really hits its prime supporting the Leclerc. Now, this is one of my favorite bundles. It is $120, like just like all the other Battlefront starter sets. Again, I think I've said it multiple times. They're very, very consistent on their pricing. Really, really makes getting to know these things much easier and much more affordable. Is it as good of a deal as the British box? I don't know. Would I, if I hadn't, like we got into Team Yankee because my brother bought the starter set with the 2 armies. So kind of just, yeah, I'll take the Americans. If I was walking into a game store to buy Team Yankee for the very first time, I would buy this box over the British or or some of the American starter sets. I'm a Francophile. I love the look of the French army. I love their equipment, and honestly, their stuff is beefy. They have a huge range of stuff past the 5 types of units you get in the starter box. You can do a lot with the French. So that's one of the big things that I think attracts me to this box is its affordability. You're going to be starting at just essentially the same amount of stuff that you get in a lot of the other starter box, but you'll notice, like now I said just about the same amount stuff, I think. It's a little smaller. You've got basically 2 tank platoons of 3 tanks each, artillery battery 3. That's kind of standard. But like the British was chock full of stuff. The French have a problem. Cost points. Their point cost per unit is higher. The Leclerc tank is the most expensive NATO tank. Granted, that cost comes with quality, but I will say, if you run a French contingent in Team Yankee, you can expect to have a much smaller force than whatever Soviet counterpart you're having. Even honestly, even if you play one of those hypothetical games where it's two NATO guys on NATO guys, and you call, oh well, it's a training maneuver, whatever. You're gonna have a smaller force because the points costs are higher. The Leclerc tank is more expensive than, I mean, honestly, even the M1A1, if I recall correctly. Like, you really, really are paying for this army. Now, that being said, is it worth it? Yeah, yeah, because if your points values are equal, like, you're going to have a smaller force, but what that force is able to do against the larger one, oh boy, this isn't like bolt action. This isn't like 40K where, hey, points are the same, the armies are going to be relatively the same. No, Battlefront has factored something really, really, really well into it. Like, if you use a points equivalent force, you're going to have roughly the same equivalency of effectiveness. Now, effectiveness goes into, how quickly can it move? How quickly can it shoot? How effectively can it shoot? How hard does it hit when it shoots? So with the additional points costs, or with that expensive but small unit, you have a unit that is really, really effective. And we learned this kind of the hard way playing against the Soviets. Me as an American player is like, my American unit was always like dramatically smaller than the Soviets, and it was like, I'm like, what's going on here? Well, then at the end of the game, it was kind of a constant reminder of like, wow, okay, I won, and I was outnumbered like 2-1, or in some cases even more. It was a very, very dramatic lesson on like, hey, you can win in this game with a smaller force, and it's similar to, as we like to say, real world, but it's the tabletop. There's no way to adequately translate real world into tabletop, because honestly, you're missing the key part, is the human element, and the each one of the guys on the table are bits of plastic or metal. It's not people, it's not tanks, it's not actual like metal, flesh and bone. But I will say, I hate saying it, but as you see in history, you see a lot of smaller units, especially the Korean War is a really good example for this. A lot of the engagements, American units, higher quality, better equipped, better trained, going up against, despite being small, going up against much, much larger Chinese or North Korean units, and absolutely just dominating. Now, granted, there's instances of vice versa. I mean, I'd be stupid not to admit it, but those instances of vice versa can also happen in the game. If your force isn't doing so hot, you could try an experimental tactic and it just completely fails. Like, that's okay. But the biggest illustrator of that principle of, hey, the points value may not necessarily translate into an equivalent force as to what your opponents has, is the French, because good quality units, expensive units, a wide range of units. Like, you can have a pretty big French unit with cheap units, but it's not going to be tanks. I mean, maybe AMX 30s, but it's not going to be Leclercs. It's going to be a lot of like Milan light vehicles, light vehicles with Milans or Hots on them. And so but by and large, if you were trying to run like a Leclerc Tank Company, you're going to be a lot smaller than your opponent. And that's kind of cool. But yeah. So again, the French Leclerc Tank Company starter box right there, $120 from Battlefront. We have it here, as you can tell, at Coppertown Games. It would be my preferred box if I didn't already have just a ton of Americans. So yeah, feel free to come up, buy it, ask us any questions that you might have about it, put them down in the comments, give us a like and subscribe. And I will say, I would be remiss if I didn't note that Yesterday was the anniversary of the start of the Tet Offensive in 1968, January 30th, 1968. The Tet Offensive launched. So if you have any fathers, uncles, brothers, or you, or anyone who was involved in that, um, you know, just be aware, what happened on Tet and the next 21 weeks of combat was really incredible. Um, it was a political and overall like strategic. Well, the political it was majorly a political victory for the North, but the South Vietnamese, the Americans, the Australians, and all the other allied nations really just they did a fantastic job of counterattacking and really defeating the forces involved in all three phases of that offensive. Because I believe that offensive, yeah, it started January 30th, but then you had phase one, then you had phase two in May, then you had phase three in August. And so impressive offensive, but I think what's more impressive is honestly just the fact that the South Vietnamese, the Americans, the Army, the Marine Corps, the Australians, South Koreans, the fact that it should, in all retrospect, should have been worse. And so the fact that we turned around and turned it into a battlefield victory for us, really a massive victory for the Southern or South Vietnamese and the Allied forces, is really impressive. And Tet, it was such a horrifying thing for a lot of the men involved that it never really got the celebration that like the Battle of the Bulge got, where American underdogs really just against the odds won, and really you almost see that scale of action across the whole country. I mean, it's ridiculous just how many, and it's impressive how well coordinated all three offensives were. I mean, you got to give them that. So yeah, if you know anyone or are descended from anyone involved in the Tet Offensive, yeah, yesterday was the anniversary. January 30th, 1968 is when the Tet Offensive started. We're going to be doing a few things to honor that over the next 21 weeks. If you guys follow us on Instagram, you'll guys see a lot of our Instagram posts showcasing some of the things we're getting into. So yeah, swing on by if you're in Jerome or Northern Arizona. Come on by. We're up here in sunny, beautiful Jerome, and I hope you have a great weekend.